Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church, and welcome to our worship service for May 17th. My name is Sandy Farlow, and I am a worship associate. This church, like all Unitarian Universalist congregations, is founded on a common vision rather than a required creed. We believe that all people have inherent worth and dignity and deserve to be treated with kindness. And the mission we share is to nourish spirits, work for justice, and transform lives. As we gather still in this time of COVID-19, I'd like to say thank you for joining us online. Community UU Church of Plano will remain closed for Sunday services and other church activities until we have assurances from our healthcare community that it is safe to gather again. Check our website and Facebook page for that date and for other ways to stay connected. Those of you who are familiar with our regular church year know that the final performance of the choir before summer break is Music Sunday. Well, that's today in theory. But since we've been able to gather for choir practice or to sing today, because that 6-foot separation takes up a lot of room, and it's very hard to articulate through your mask. This service is designed around the pianists who play for us throughout the year with a couple of very special guests. I hope you find inspiration and joy in being with us today. We will now begin our music lessons. Our prelude is played by Paul and Elena Westbrook. I call you to worship with words from Colossians chapter 3. Above all, embrace love, which is the bond of perfection. Let the peace of the Spirit to which you are called rule your hearts. Be thankful. Find wisdom in the words that dwell in your lessons. Teach and admonish one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Sing with grace in your heart to the Lord. We will now light our chalice. We are mosaics, pieces of light, love, history, stars, glued together with magic and music and words. Please join me now. Please join me now for our invocation and responsive reading for today. Your response for each line is, we praise you and thank you. Great God, you bring light and life into the world. Creative God, you give us the gift of music to play, to sing, to bring joy. Inspiring God, you help our spirits to lift and our feet to dance. Gathering God, you meet us wherever we worship and join us in community. Today we worship with gladness, with our instruments, and with our voices we make a joyful noise. Amen. The covenant is the silk that joins Unitarian Universalist congregations, communities, and individuals together in a web of interconnection. Please join me now in repeating the promise that we make to one another each week. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is our law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
Hi, my name is Kelley Poche Rodriguez. I am a former music director at Community Unitarian, and I'm excited to be joining you for Music Sunday. The piece I'll be playing for you is the first movement of Bach's Italian Concerto, and I thought I would just share some life lessons that I took away in learning the Bach. The first is not to be afraid to try hard things, to have bravery. Just because a piece or a task may seem overwhelming or daunting, don't be afraid to go at it, even if you may not succeed right away and you may fail quite a lot of times. I did. And so if we break things down into manageable chunks and go slowly and have patience with ourselves, we can then slowly start to build them up or make little bits of the task larger. And in my case, you start to get a little faster, and then you start to feel excited and successful. Diligence also. So sometimes I don't want to practice, and sometimes I want to skip over the parts that are hard and just play the parts that I like to play that are easy. But just really having the diligence to work on whatever the task is, and master it. So it's a great feeling after. And having patience for yourself in that. Also giving yourself grace. I realize that my performance is not always going to be perfect. And if I'm always caught up in the fact that every note is not there, or I'm worrying about that all the time, there's just kind of no point. So we can still make beautiful music, even though it may not be perfect. That's okay. And we have to kind of forgive ourselves for that. And the last is just to remember to breathe. So I find sometimes when I'm playing, I'll start holding my breath on a difficult section. And so whenever I find myself in life feeling stressful or tense or just kind of needing a reset, I just remind myself, inhale, exhale, slow down and breathe, and everything is manageable.
Thank you, Kelley. Susy Gulley is also a past director of music and is now our assistant music director. She didn't get demoted. She just rejoined us after a short absence. Susy accompanies religious services once each month, and directs the choir for all our special services during the year. She brings her talent and her joy every time she walks through the door. She's going to share with us that joy that she finds in singing and teaching.
Hello, my name is Susy Gulley, and I've been teaching singing for 25 years. I feel that singing is the most pure expression of humanity. In fact, people have been singing since before they could even speak. We had singing before we had any other forms of formal language. I feel like there are so many reasons to sing. And over the years, I've had to justify the fact that I teach music and that I teach singing to people. So here are a few of the reasons I've been told and I've had to tell others that singing is important. Number one, it's good for your brain. It helps your math scores if you're a kid or an adult. It helps your science scores. It helps every other discipline in school. And so that's important. Number two, it's like learning a foreign language, because in fact it is a foreign language. To read the notes off the staff and to try to connect what those little dots on those lines and between those lines means in regards to sound is pretty advanced. So it's a very high level sort of activity. Another thing I've had to say to justify singing to people and learning singing is that it helps your synapses in your brain. It creates pathways and neurological connections that nothing else really does, because when you sing, you have to look at notes, you have to hear what you're doing, and then you have to produce a sound. Finally, a biggie that, in fact, the soprano section at church in choir has told me over and over again is it lowers your blood pressure. And I believe that for sure. You're putting out this beautiful sound, you're in community with others, and the art of inhalation and exhalation as you create sound as a singer helps calm your body, oxygenate your cells, and in turn lowers your blood pressure. Now, when I was a little girl, I couldn't sing at all. Well, I thought I could sing, but I couldn't. I have a lullaby that I used to sing with my mom. It's called Go to Sleepy Little Baby. And it wasn't until I was in college, unfortunately, in a course where we had to transcribe and sing a song from our childhood for our professor that I discovered that, wow, I don't know this song at all, because the way I sang it with my mom was the way I learned it when I was tone deaf. And so it didn't go the way I thought it went. Unfortunately, oops, I turned that in as an assignment, and my professor was like, do you know this song? And I learned the right way to sing it. But for years, till I was 18 years old, I always sang that song the wrong way. That is why I believe anyone can learn to sing. I've heard so many people say, oh, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I can't learn to sing. I can't sing. Well, yeah, you can. Anybody can learn. It just requires some discipline. Some people it comes so naturally to, but there are so many others who they can't. They just can't get it. So you have to learn to listen. And I think that's so beautiful that people can learn to listen to a sound and then finally learn to recreate that sound. As a music teacher, I've learned so much from what music can do for people. I've had kids over the years come back and tell me that the only place they could find a way to express themselves in school was through choir class. I've had kids tell me the only place they could feel true and authentic was in that community of being in a choir. I've had kids have their entire future determined by the fact that they learned to sing from me. I have students who work on Broadway. I have former students who are teachers. I have former students who are actors and actresses. And it's that experience of learning to sing as a youngster that has helped them go forward in their life. And I can't think of any higher calling. My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing?
Thank you, Susy. Please join me in prayer. Spirit of life, we thank you for all that is good in our lives and the gifts you give us. Thank you today, especially for the gift of music. We thank you for the seasons and beauty and new life and for all the joys we share. Lift up our friends and family who need healing and strength. Shine your light into all our lives and bring us hope in this time of isolation. Guard our guardians, all those who go into the world to make it safe for us. Bless them for their service. Be with us in our daily living. Fill our hearts with songs of joy and gratitude. Help us to foster peace and love in our beloved community. We honor your presence in our world, in our homes, in one another, and in ourselves. Amen. Duane Mortensen is one of our volunteer musicians. Duane and I used to be on the same schedule as pianist and worship associate for a while. He always had a wonderful musical commentary going with his selections for prelude and offertory and other incidental music that matched the theme of the service. I give you one of my favorite musicians and engineers, Duane Mortensen.
So why do I play music? I was always interested in math and science, and there's a tight relationship between math and music. My career was engineering. Over and over again, I found connections with what I studied and did for work and with music. Somehow it helped to enable some kind of creativity, or it provided some kind of understanding of a concept at an intuitive level. Instruments are interesting to learn because you have to break through barriers within your own brain in order to perform. The keyboard is unique in that the left hand should be able to play independently from the right. Brain science actually studies this to understand how the brain works, but it's interesting to actually experience it yourself. I think the composer that pushes this capability the most is Bach. I'm going to use a simple prelude to demonstrate this. You learn this piece or something very similar to it fairly early when you play the piano. And when you first try to play it, you literally can't do it. You have to push through the muscle memory and build the connections within your brain. Then it's almost like a switch gets flipped, and then you're able to do it. So listen to this beginning of this speech. Bach was writing for the harpsichord because the piano hadn't been invented yet. A harpsichord can't sustain notes, so he had to use melody lines continually moving in the right and left hand to provide interest in the piece. You don't normally focus on listening to the lower part other than the texture it provides. But I want you to listen to this left hand by itself and hear what it's doing. So think about what you just heard. It's kind of interesting. It sounds almost like a walking bass part in some jazz ensemble. So Bach has added the left hand melody you just heard to the right hand, but he didn't stop there. He added a simple, very simple melody between the left and the right hand, and it goes back and forth. It's very subtle, but it's there. So now you have 3 independent melodies that you have to play with 2 hands and 1 brain. When you start learning the piano, it's impossible to do. Your brain simply isn't wired that way. But with work, you can do it, which I find very interesting. So listen to the whole piece and see if you can follow the different melodies that are working together. So if you focused on the different melodies working together, you've actually just built different connections with your brain. So with that, I hope you will enjoy the new synapse connections that you've just created.
Thank you, Duane. This is the season of stewardship in our church. By this time, our members would have finished the pledge drive and budget review for the coming year. If you have not done so, I urge you to complete your plan for giving to sustain the many ministries of our church. You can also make a Sunday gift support online by going to our website and choosing the Donate Now button. We thank you for your gifts given and received. When I began planning this service, more about that later, I called one of my favorite people in the world, my niece Kara, who's a minister in Washington, D.C. My fellow choir members have heard me talk about her often, from visits to her family, to her university in North Carolina, to seminary at Yale. Actually, some of you have met her when she came to a service auction dressed as a blues brother. I asked her if she had any writing laying around about music, and she sent me a great piece from a newsletter that she had written for her own congregation. I asked her to share it with us, and she graciously agreed. Here is the Reverend Kara Scroggins.
I spent my senior year in college researching and writing a thesis about the use of African American spirituals in literature. When I switched gears a few years after that and stopped wanting to be a teacher and started wanting to be a pastor, I reimagined that thesis as a sermon series on the spirituals. And now, a few years after that, as we find ourselves in a new and challenging moment, I'm reimagining that series and the newsletter article I wrote to introduce it for our moment now in this time of virtual worship and spiritual longing. So here are my words. You can preach your heart out every week, the professor told our class just before we graduated from divinity school. But when your people are up against a wall, when they feel their world falling apart, they're not going to draw on famous quotes from any of your great sermons to hold them up. When pressed, they're going to repeat back to themselves the words they know best, the theology they've memorized. And what sticks in our memories? Music. The words to the songs we've sung in church. That's what people are going to remember. So, he said to a bunch of almost pastors, you'd better pick good songs and learn to sing them together. Music is a vital and memorable part of our worship and our general human experience. From Sunday school songs that taught us the books of the Bible to hymns or songs that take us back to a specific memory of a person or friend or family member, music teaches us about God and ourselves and each other. If you want to learn something about another person's story, you could read about it. You could have a conversation or watch a movie, but sometimes words, even vivid, powerful words, fall short. And that's where music picks up the slack. Music allows us to connect to another's experience. Walls of misunderstanding can come down when we hear in someone's song the same longing, disappointment, or hope that lives in us. The African American spirituals have a particular power to teach and connect people of faith, especially I think right now. Part of their creation was an act of sacred resistance. Against dehumanizing forces, enslaved people sang out, "We are here. Our lives matter to God." Through song, they reclaimed Bible stories that had been used to oppress them. And they used coded songs like "Steal Away" and "Wade in the Water" to give covert instructions to those escaping from slavery. Singing together, creating new music using call and response helped to create a sense of community among people who had been captured from various nations in West Africa and brought into exile. These strong, resilient people formed a new community, and they and their descendants were bound together by a tradition of music. And in their words and their messages, the spirituals communicate messages of sorrow, of hope. They lament. They sing about going one step at a time, about a God who is working for good, about a healing power that is beyond anything we can see or know. And the spirituals do it all with an expressiveness that most of us could probably use in times like these. I'm going to sing one that has been coming through my head a lot recently, called "Balm in Gilead." There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
Thank you, Kara. We have always wanted to do a service together. Maybe not like this, but that was great. So I despaired over this service. Music Sunday, no choir. Really, that in itself was cause for despair. I promise you, Christopher and Susy and me and each and every member of this choir is sorry that we could not do this service live and sing together today for our own joy and to give you the service that we all always look forward to. Chris and I wish we could have surprised you with a virtual choir even, but that was beyond our abilities. I had lots of really great ideas that I couldn't do. I wanted to do a reading called 11 Reasons for Singing that would have each reason given to you by a different member of the choir, but I do not possess the competence or skill to have recorded or edited that. And additionally, you may not know this, but now that our services are available to those outside our sanctuary doors, our choices of readings and music are more circumscribed. We do not necessarily have the rights to use other artists' work for broadcast, or in our case, narrowcast. I probably couldn't have used 11 Reasons for Singing anyway. And while I may blithely throw out a bit of Garrison Keillor or Psychology Today from the pulpit, I can't do the same in an online service without express written permission of the author. There is material in the public domain, such as dead authors from the 19th century or a list of UU hymns that we may use, but none of the jewels that I had polished over the last year to present to you on this special day. So I felt limited. Musical works that we have a right to use within our own congregation for performance or limited performance, such as pop shows, are not licensed for use on air. Now, frankly, I don't think that ASCAP or BMI, which are music licensing organizations, I don't think they're going to come after our little church bunch, narrow or broadcast. I know for a fact that churches have a fairly liberal interpretation of licensing laws on their side, but we are a fair compensation employer. The rules we like to bend often bend into something bigger. I think that's one of the big ones, 7 maybe. At any rate, all this is leading up to the message that I want to share. I was complaining to our dear leader, that's Worship Associate Talk for Elena. You know, I don't often complain to Chris because she's still new enough that I want her to think well of me. Anyway, I was complaining about my existential depression, how difficult I felt this service was going to be, and how I didn't think I had it in me. I didn't have it in me to do, and my closing for that letter was stymied by myself. Well, stymied is kind of a weird word. It's a little old-fashioned, kind of funny sounding. And as I pushed send, I had this flash of John Prine. Do you know this song, Dear Abby? Just the chorus. Since you're watching online, you probably could pause here and go look it up. Are you back? Well, it made me laugh a little as I sang to myself, dear stymied, you have no complaint. You are what you are and you ain't what you ain't. Aha. The answer I've been whispered to by an angel. I see that this is nothing to despair about. I don't even have to do this. I don't have to take this on. I'm no video editor. This is too much work. I don't know how to do it right. I am in the clear. I can just say no. But then I couldn't quite remember how the rest of the chorus went, so I looked it up. So listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Signed, Dear Abby. Oh, well. That sort of changed the part where I thought I had an inspired excuse to do nothing. It occurred to me that I should listen up, and listen up good to what the song might really be saying, and not go around making up my own interpretation that suited my scaredy cat, semi-lazy self about not wanting to do an online service, and thinking that because I couldn't make it as good as I wanted it to be for you all and for myself. Let's not leave that out. My own need to appear good at something that I'm not very good at all. Well, really, Sandy, just do it. Do your best. Do what you can. Ask your friends to help. Your life is not so hard. And thus ended my despair, because I began to move forward. I was unstymied. And so you see, a music lesson. My music lesson. So this has been a story about being saved by music once again in my life. I think of all the times that I've been in despair and a song came on the radio that opened my heart. Maybe it made me cry when I was feeling hard-hearted, or laugh when I was taking myself too seriously, or open to joy when I think the world is too dark a place. Music can take me on a flight of fancy, or make me want to dance, or remind me that I'm not the only person who's ever had a broken heart. Music teaches us so much. Music heals us in so many ways. It conjures up wonderful memories. It reminds us of people and places we love. It encourages us to think of a better tomorrow. It can bring us back to life or ease our passage as we die. Music inspires our souls and unites us, even when we are isolated. Now, if it were possible here, I would call us all together to sing a John Prine song, or maybe Bill Withers, or I would edit all our fabulous musicians into a wonderful version of Ode to Joy, and the choir would sing to you. I know they wish they could, but it's not possible right now. So stop complaining or feeling sorry or wishing somebody else could do it, or bemoaning your own incompetence. Just get on with it. Turn on your radio or fire up your turntable. Ask your favorite streaming service to play some music, any music. Because trust me, there's something there for you. Music is truly a tie that binds us together. Signed, Dear Sandy. And out. Our last lesson is from a man that everyone in this church loves, and I do not say that lightly. He teaches us, he leads us, not only in our music, but as an example of a real mensch. He entertains us, he provides us with one of the most important parts of any religious service. Our director of music, Christopher Wolff.
Hello, my name is Christopher Wolff, and I am excited to be part of this Music Sunday worship service. Today, I am going to share with you my journey as a church musician and the experiences that led me to being the current director of music at Community Unitarian Universalist Church. I took my first job as church organist and choir director when I was just 16 years old. One day, at the end of my sophomore year of high school, I was sitting in band class when my band director asked casually if anyone was interested in applying for the organist position at a local Baptist church, the First Baptist Church of Sussex in New Jersey. I was familiar with the church. My brothers, cousins, and I attended vacation Bible school there for many summers, and I have always had fond memories of my time there. The church sat at the crossroad of two intersecting highways and was definitely an icon of the town, with its towering steeple, distinctive arched windows, and stone steps leading to the large double front doors. The congregants, all 25 of them, were kind and were always appreciative of the energy that I brought to the service. They liked that I was younger than them by at least 4 or 5 decades. I would play the organ for each of the Sunday services and had recently taken organ lessons from my uncle, so this was a good way to utilize my skills. I remember having to lead a 3-person choir of these little old ladies who sang their hearts out at only one service a year. I think it was during Christmas. During the summers, the pastor of the church was asked to preach at a local campground, and I had the responsibility of accompanying the church service on the keyboard. My nearly 2 years spent as a musician of this church instilled in me a sense of confidence and pride that I would carry with me throughout my career as a church musician. I felt appreciated, respected, and valued within the church community. During my junior year of college, an email was sent out to the music majors at the College of New Jersey advertising an open music director position at Bethany Presbyterian Church in downtown Trenton, New Jersey. The church was not located in the best of neighborhoods, but the 10 people who attended the services felt connected and welcomed and had a place of community within the church. The building itself was very historic with beautiful woodwork, many stained glass windows, and red velvet pew cushions. Part of my job responsibility was to lead the choir. It was about 5 people who could barely sing in unison, but we would practice for 30 minutes prior to the church service and would present one anthem during the service. I worked at Bethany Presbyterian for a little less than 2 years until I graduated from college. From my experience at this church, I learned to be more compassionate and loving to those people who were less fortunate than I. In addition, I learned to find the worth in people from all different backgrounds, regardless of how different they were from me. My next position as a director of music would bring me to the quaint but absolutely stunning town of Pottersville, New Jersey, at the Pottersville Reformed Church. There is no connection to the town of Pottersville from It's a Wonderful Life, though it is every bit as charming. A little white church with black window shutters nestled among rolling hills and immaculate horse farms, the church was truly the center of the community. I began this position just as I was beginning my first year of teaching. The conservative congregation had about 40 members who would attend service on a weekly basis. I was asked to play the organ, and my skills were completely non-existent at this time because I had spent the last 4 years training as a classical pianist in undergrad, but I was finally able to get away with playing the organ just on the hymns, and I would play the piano for all other incidental music and for the choir anthem. I remember walking back and forth across the front of the church between the organ and the piano just to please the congregants. They really liked the sound of the organ, they told me. It just felt more like church. I led a choir of about 15 people, and they referred to themselves as the One Rehearsal Wonders. I could present a piece at a Wednesday night rehearsal, and they would be ready to sing it on Sunday. The choir sang at each Sunday service, and each year we would present a Christmas cantata that would be highlighted as our gift to the community. My time spent in the church allowed me to continue to grow as a director, to gain even more confidence in my abilities, and it was encouraging to know that my skills as a musician were respected and valued. I was now 24 years old and spent the past 8 years working at various churches, but was not becoming spiritually fulfilled for many of the churches where I was employed. I have always considered myself as a Christian up until this point, so it felt natural to work within the Christian denomination, but I began to challenge the beliefs with which I was brought up as a Catholic and born-again Christian. I was simply working at and not actively participating or subscribing to the beliefs of the churches. Though my personal beliefs differed from those which were being taught, I was still able to foster meaningful connections with the choir members and the congregants, and to provide others with the gift of music to further enhance the worship service. I learned that music is truly a universal language that connects us and allows us to break down barriers. In my case, letting go of the things that I could not control in terms of my personal beliefs regarding church and religion. In the summer of 2011, I moved from New Jersey to Texas, probably one of the best decisions I ever made. I was ready to start fresh and to begin a new life in a new place. One day, my partner at the time came home from UNT, where he was working on his doctorate degree in choral conducting, and he said that he came across a job posting that was advertising an opening for a director of music at a church in Plano. He said it was for a Unitarian Universalist church. I have never heard of such a thing before. I quickly looked up the church and began reading the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, and my interest was piqued. It was November 2011, and I applied for the position and had my initial interview with 2 amazing ladies, Elena Westbrook and Sandy Farlow. They made me feel welcomed, at ease, and were so friendly and amicable. Part of my interview was to work with the choir, and they were so receptive to me, and they were engaged, and they were so friendly. I was offered the job shortly after. From the very beginning, I have been welcomed with wide open arms. I feel respected, loved, appreciated, and valued by the choir and the congregants. Never have I been in such a warm and welcoming church congregation who completely accepted me for being me. The choir has been one of my greatest blessings. I love coming to rehearsals each week, ready to challenge them, laugh with them, and make some beautiful music together. It truly is a highlight of every week. Yes, there are times when I get to rehearsal and I feel very tired, but I leave feeling rejuvenated and refreshed, personally and musically fulfilled, if you will. I can hardly believe that I have been a part of this church community for almost a decade, minus a year I took off to complete my master's degree in counseling. The congregation has been so appreciative of the gift of music that the choir and I have provided over the years. There's always someone who at the end of the service to let me know how much they appreciated the music or to express how a certain piece of music resonated with them. What a joy it is to hear that music can be such a rewarding experience for both the performer and the congregation. Thank you for allowing me to be your director of music and for giving me the chance to grow with you. I feel truly blessed to work and worship at a church that truly values the inherent worth and dignity of each person and where music is greatly valued as an element of the worship service. I was asked to play a piece that was meaningful to me. So here's a short excerpt from The Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. I was classically trained, so it was always extremely exciting for me when given the opportunity to play something like ragtime music during my years training as a pianist. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you for the gift of music that you give us all year long. As our worship time this morning is nearly over, please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Before we all sign out, I want to thank all the musicians who contributed today to the service. And I could not have done this without the planning and help of Elena Westbrook and Christopher Wolff. I hope you found the gift to all of you from the choir, who fervently wishes that they were here today. In the teaser e-blast for today's service, choir members made a list of the songs that give them joy that they recommend to you. If you're not on that mailing list, you can find a playlist on our website with a few additional recommendations from those who participated today. And finally, an invitation to all of you. Consider joining our choir and music program at CUUC when we gather safely again. We'd love to have you. And stand by for a rockin' postlude from Sister Rosetta Tharp. Please join me in our benediction. May our hearts be filled with peace. May we recognize that we all sing a common song. May we dance to the music of the universe together. Go in peace. Amen and blessed be.
Up above my head, I hear music in the air. Up above my head, there is music in the air. Up above my head, music in the air. And I really do believe joy somewhere. All in my room, music everywhere. All in my home, music in the air. joy somewhere. Up above my head, music in the air, music in the air. Up above my head, there is music in the air. Up above my head, there is music in the air. You know I really do believe joy somewhere. All in my home, music everywhere. All in my home, singing right there. Up above my head, there is music in the air. You know I really do believe joy somewhere. Oh yes, oh yes. Let's do that again. Above my head, music in the air. Up above my head, there is music in the air. Oh, good Lord, I really do believe joy somewhere. You know, all in my heart, music everywhere. All in my soul, it makes me whole. Makes me feel so good. It makes me so happy. And I do believe joy somewhere. Well, above my head. Thank God Almighty. Music everywhere. Up above my head. And don't you know music in the air? Up above my head. Music in the air.